So team, welcome to today's hot seat special. We were meant to have Whitney in the hot seat with us, but unfortunately she wasn't able to make it due to commitments with her basketball team. So instead we got in an emergency replacement, Aideen, who is going to be hopping in the hot seat for the second time, and she's going to just be going through what's been working well for her in terms of gaining, reverse dieting. We talk a little bit about fat loss as well, but the main aim here is for you to understand that you can eat in a surplus of calories or maintenance calories. You don't always have to be on poverty calories or lower calories forever. That's not the aim. We want to have as much freedom and flexibility as possible, okay, with our nutrition. So Aideen, as I said, you're back for your second hot seat. Can you give us a quick recap of your journey so far?
Well, my journey, I feel like when I think back, it's actually been a very long journey, because I started, I don't know, was it 8 or 9 years ago? It was when I was first in college, but back then I wasn't really consistent. I would just, sometimes I'd go 5 times a week, sometimes I'd go none or one, and I had no structure. It was just, I used to think having a protein shake was gonna solve all my problems and help me build muscle, and I'd do like leg day one after another. I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. And then it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I actually got serious about training. Like, I actually had a proper structure with my training. I wouldn't keep changing it up. Every time I went, I had a training plan to follow. I was starting to learn about nutrition, and then now I'm definitely better, like, with training with intensity. Whereas maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was following a structured program, but I probably wasn't training with the right intensity, and that's like a mindset thing, I feel like, and it all just comes over time. Like, you can tell me as much as you want, you have to train harder, but like sometimes you think you're going as hard as you can, but
You have to build yourself up to it.
yeah, you have to build yourself up, and then when you get to like another stage, you realize, oh god, I wasn't actually pushing myself before. Yeah. So now I feel like I have full control of my nutrition, and I know how to train, but the hardest part is just trying to train with the intensity and going to failure. That's the hardest part, I think.
Obviously we've seen you go through multiple phases, fat loss and muscle building, but what would you say has been the most rewarding or enjoyable part of your transformational journey?
The mindset side of it, anyway, because at first when I got into training, it was to build muscle and to add some shape to my frame, because I'm naturally thin and tall, so I'd probably look quite lanky if I didn't have some bit of muscle. So that's why I first got into it. It was all about looks, and then now I see that like there's so much mindset that goes with it, and then those kind of mindset things you learn actually apply to other parts of your life, which is interesting and rewarding. And nutrition is also rewarding, like just having the knowledge, because once you learn it, you have it forever. Do you know, it's like riding a bike, you never forget. So like, if I want to do fat loss or muscle building, or if I'm eating out or going on holidays, I just know how to
fit them in,
or how to like manage them.
Yeah. So we'll talk about now, I suppose the main point of this hot seat is like, you're now eating 2,300 calories on a daily basis, and obviously that may even continue to increase, as you go through this muscle building phase that we're in. I think we had you close to 3,000 even at one stage before. But what's it been like, I suppose, for you transitioning from a fat loss phase into a muscle building plan?
The first few times I went from fat loss to muscle building, the hardest part was thinking you're going to gain weight, and because you're like, oh, I've done all this work to lose weight or lose fat, then you're increasing your calories and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to gain weight. But then the further you go into your muscle building phase, you realize it's not that easy to gain fat, especially when your metabolism is after getting faster. Then it's actually harder to gain fat. And when you do it the right way, like when you increase them incrementally over time, you're not going to gain fat. So now transitioning from a fat loss phase to a muscle building phase is much easier mentally, because I know I'm not going to get gain all the fat back. But it's just it takes time for your mind to get around that.
So how did you mentally prepare for these longer gaining phases? You know, sometimes they can go on for 6 months, 9 months, you know, after working so hard and to strip away the excess fat.
Well, I think just knowing, having realistic expectations, whereas the first few weeks and months you're not going to gain a bunch of fat, but like maybe towards the end you might start to gain a little bit, but you just have to accept that, and then you know towards the end of your gaining phase you're going to probably go back into a fat loss phase. And I also have learned to just appreciate where you're at, because sometimes if you're in a fat loss phase and then you're like, I probably complain a bit when I'm on low calories, and then when I'm at the other side of it in a gaining phase and I have loads of calories to eat and I find it hard to get them all in, I'm probably complaining again. So I feel like just enjoy where you're at.
Yeah, enjoy where you're at. That's the key.
Yeah.
And like,
it's easier said than done though, until you've done both phases. I feel like somebody might say it's easy
all
for you
ends
to
of the
say.
spectrum are hard. Like, you know, when you're deep in the cut, it's hard. When you're deep in the gaining phase, it's hard as well, because digestion becomes a bigger issue. You way more fuel going into the system, so you need to make sure you're eating foods that are easily digestible for you. So it doesn't matter the foods that you eat. Just because you're eating more calories doesn't mean you should go and eat shit food. But at the same time, it can be hard to break down a lot of good clean food. So you need to get stuff that's agreeable with you for your digestive system, that you're going to tolerate really well, and it's not going to cause issues of bloating, indigestion and whatnot. So yeah, that's a big part of it. And you know at this stage the food that kind of work well for you, right?
Yeah, and when I first did like my first gaining phase, I probably was like, oh, all these calories I can eat. I got lazy with my tracking and did the dirty ball kind of, you know, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter if I go over my calories because I'm gaining. But it does, because if you eat too much calories too soon, then yeah, you will gain fat.
Yeah, that's the key. It's like letting your body adapt and adjust to each new intake that you give it. And I've noticed even now, the slower I take it, the better. Before I used to be like rushing myself up calories, and then I ended up having to get back into a fat loss phase too soon. Whereas if I take it slower, it's not only better for my digestive system, but you only ever really need to be in a slight surplus. You only ever need to be 200 or 300 calories in the surplus max. You know, you don't need to be 500 or 600 calories in a surplus. It's unnecessary. So the slower you do it, the better. And of course, as you're going up in weight, because you will obviously increase in weight when you're packing on a bit of muscle, you know, you will have to adjust your intake slightly as you go up as well. So yeah, these are just things to be aware of. But how has your relationship with food changed since you started the gaining phase? You know, can you talk about any differences around the mindset you have now for eating more food?
Yeah, well, I've definitely changed a lot in the quality of food. Like before, if I was in a fat loss phase, it was all low calorie this, low calorie that. But now I'm trying to eat better foods, like wholesome, not nutritious, whole foods.
Obviously, you have a pretty good relationship with food when you understand, I think, nutrition better. It's easier. You know, you don't view things as bad or good.
Oh yeah, I definitely did go through, a phase of thinking things were bad and things were good, and then you'd get worked up and stressed in your mind if you're eating something that's bad. Whereas now I'm like, it's like in the grand scheme of things, if I went out for dinner and I just treated myself to dessert and the starter and didn't track or didn't allow calories, I'm like, it's not the end of the world when you do it once every now and then.
Absolutely. I had a conversation actually last night with a guy in jiu-jitsu. He has a PhD in nutrition. Colin Doherty is his name, and he done his PhD in like how people's relationship with food, fighters, like for cutting weight, to have like really bad relationship with food. But what he said was the solution was to view foods or meals in isolation. So if you just view one meal in isolation, like you decide to go for with your friends and you have that burger and chips or whatever, that's not bad because you had a great time. It's literally just calories at the end of the day as well. It's the problem is when you have that and then you say, oh fuck it, I'm after ruining everything, and you continue along that way and you just keep eating shit because you had one bad meal. Like if one meal in isolation or one bad day even is not going to ruin a whole week or weeks of good work.
Yeah,
you know?
And I used to think that, like, oh, one bad day or one meal or whatever, I'd be like, oh, fucked it. But yeah, now, that's just a mindset thing, and I feel like it takes time
Oh yeah.
to understand it. Whereas, you know, if I just starting out and you explain to me to like not worry about it, it's easier for you to tell me because you're already in a position where you understand. You just have to go through the journey yourself, I feel like.
Absolutely, you know. And that's what I always try and tell you or the rest of my clients is that, you know, you can still go and enjoy yourself. You can, like, when you go out to eat out, sometimes it's okay to have the pizza or get like the food that you really want. It's like, don't always try and be 100% good on point, because again, that is what develops bad relationships with food. You know, again, at the end of the day, it's just calories, it's just energy. If it's within your calorie targets, scientifically speaking, it's not gonna do any harm. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about flexibility and, you know, around nutrition now, because seeing as we're on that topic. Now that you're eating much more, like generally most of the time you're never really, even in the fat loss phase, now you're kind of 2,000 calories would be low enough for you, right? So now that you're eating more in general, how do you find like balancing, you know, enjoying meals out or nights out with sticking to your goals?
Well, if I know I have something coming up, I'll plan for it, where I might like cut back on my calories the day before or 2 days before, or if it wasn't planned, I'll pull back on my calories the day after or the day after that. And if I'm on like high enough calories, it's quite easy.
You don't have to pull
You
back.
don't have to pull back too much, or even on that day, maybe you might just pull back on your meals before you go out. So that's the good thing, obviously, about being on higher calories. You have way more flexibility, and you don't always feel like you have to claw back calories from days previous or prior to the event.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it so much easier when you come out of the fat loss phase and you're in the gaining phase and you have way more calories to play around with. Fitting in things like nights out or meals out just becomes so much easier, and that's where I actually love to get all my clients through that stage, because it really does show them that, you know, it doesn't always have to be restriction. When you go on holidays, how do you manage your calories without stressing about it? You know, any strategies that you use to stay on track while you're away and trying to enjoy yourself?
So before a holiday, I'll probably push myself really hard in the gym and all that, and try and keep my nutrition fairly good and clean before the holidays. And then on a holiday, it just depends. Like if it's a weekend away, you might not be as meticulous because you're like, it's just a weekend. If it's a week away, I might try and be a little bit better, whereas I'll just think about the portion sizes I'm used to having at home and then try and follow that when I'm eating out. And I'll always, not so much calories, but I'll always try and hit my protein targets, because in my head I'm like, I work so hard to get whatever muscle I have. It's not that hard to just hit your protein targets when you're away to preserve your muscle, because it's so hard to build it in the first place. So I'll just hit my like protein and then just have a gauge with portion sizes. And then I'll enjoy myself because it's only a few days. And then I get back on track when I get home.
What's your protein target that you aim for typically?
Is it double my body weight in kgs?
Yeah, so 2 grams per kg of body weight is a good rule of thumb.
I'm always around 62, 63 kgs, and maybe if I'm deep in a gaining phase, I could be 65 or 66, so I'll just double that, my body weight.
Yeah, so there's 120 to 130
always around that.
grams of protein, okay. What's your approach then to indulging like on social occasions without, you know, derailing the progress that you made? Like, do you do any meal swaps in particular, or any strategies that help you stay on track?
So again, if I know I have something coming up, then I'll just pull back calories for that event. Or if I didn't know if I had an unplanned event, I'll save calories for the days. I'll pull back on my calories the days after the event, and then sometimes I just try not to stress about it. Like, you know, it was my niece's birthday party the other day and there was cake. I'm not gonna not have the cake.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy myself. It's only like once a year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't stress about it too much, and I feel like maybe I'm lucky in a way because I'm able to handle a lot of calories now, that I have more calories to play around with. Whereas if I was in a fat loss phase, then I'd be much more inclined to pull back my calories the day beforehand and the day after, like I said.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's going back to that freedom you have with being on, you know, much higher calories. most women unfortunately think you have to be on 1600 calories, or even I've had some women come to me saying they were put on a 1200 calorie diet, which again what happens is it just ends up crashing their metabolism. They develop a bad relationship with food, then they always think I need to be on that calories if I ever want to lose weight. It's not the case. Yes, you do need to be on lower calories for a period of time, a brief period of time if you do it right. Then you make your way back out of it in the right way in that reverse dieting phase that we take people through. So
I do feel like the more times I've done a fat loss phase and then a reverse dieting phase, the more times I've done it, every time I go into a gaining phase, I feel like I can handle more food because my metabolism is faster.
Yeah, the body does adapt and it gets better at utilising fuel more effectively. So.
And then the problem with that is when you're trying to eat loads of calories, it's hard because you're trying to like
push the envelope a little bit more. But not a bad complaint to have, right? So, plus it's easier to stay lean, right? Now, let's talk about a bit, I suppose, of building consistency and just having that ability to stay lean all year round. You know, you've created a sustainable routine that kind of allows you to stay in shape year round. You know, what would you say are the key principles or the habits that help you maintain that consistency with your training and your nutrition?
Just having a routine anyway is always makes it easy to like stay consistent, because obviously if you have your routine Monday to Friday at least, I like to get my training done for the weekend. It's just easier. You just do the same things every day, but you know, if you're like get up, go to the gym, go to work, you do that Monday to Friday and it's easy, whereas if you're kind of all over the place, it's obviously harder to fit it in. And then having flexibility with my nutrition makes it easier, because if I had to stick to the same meals all the time, I probably wouldn't want to eat them. I remember I did it before, years ago. I was working with somebody else and I had the same meals for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and by the end of the week I was just sick of it. I didn't want to do it anymore, and then of course that's when you probably fall off track.
Yeah.
And then you just want to give up because you're like, it's too hard. Whereas when you have flexibility, I'm able to eat whatever I want any day because I know how to fit it in.
Yeah. The old school way of doing things was very like that. It was like very regimented. Chicken and rice, turkey burgers, oatmeal, nothing else, you know, plain, bland. But thankfully now that kind of has changed over the last few years. You see, you know, how like enjoyable meals can be. You can dress them up as nice as you want, you know, once it's, you know, within your macros essentially, you can make it work. So it does make it a lot easier, but how do you make sure you don't go off track with your training or your nutrition when life does get busy, like when you've, I don't know, events on, you have to maybe get ready for the wedding, or you travel a lot, you know, like what do you do in those situations?
So when I'm traveling, I'll try and train, like it depends. If I'm just going away for a week's holiday, I guess it depends who I'm with, because obviously if I'm traveling with you, I guess your environment matters, so you want to train, so that makes it easier for me to train as well, because both of us want to do it. Whereas if I'm say on a girls' holiday and most of my friends, some of them are in the gym, but like if everybody doesn't want to go to the gym, I'm probably not going to go by myself. But then again, it's a mindset thing. It's only a week. It's not that big of a deal. But usually I do always try and go to the gym if I am away for a long period of time. And what else did you ask?
So you don't, like, how do you make sure you don't go off track with your calories or your training?
Oh yeah, and then, but I'll always just get back on track. And sometimes, like when I get home from my holidays or after an occasion, like at the weekend, if I was out, like say Saturday and Sunday, if there's a wedding on, and then a day two, then I'm actually like looking forward to getting back on track, because you kind of feel like shit after drinking and eating whatever. You know how good you usually feel, so then you actually look forward to getting back on track.
Yeah, that's the thing about drinking, right? When you take breaks from it, you get used to feeling much better, but then when you do go back to it, it's like it really hits you a bit harder. Whereas the people I feel, and I used to be one of these people that would drink every single weekend, you don't know what it's like to feel good all the time, you know, because by the time you're recovered, the weekend starting again, and like, you know, your sleep is impacted by it. So I do believe, you know, you don't have to become a pioneer, but like you can cut back certainly, and you'll enjoy your nights out more. The only downfall is you feel the effects that bit more when you
Yeah.
take the breaks, especially if you try and drink like you used to, is what I found. But you know, you can still go and enjoy yourself, and you find the right kind of balance then of not going overboard when you do decide
Yeah.
to go. But
Before though, like when I was really like trying to get into my training and nutrition and all that, I did find it hard mentally to like want to go out even, because I'm like, it's gonna ruin my progress, like it's gonna undo everything. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy the time with my friends or family or whoever I'm drinking with, like it's for a reason usually, and I'll enjoy it because I know I'm not gonna be doing it every weekend.
yeah, that's the thing. You know, you appreciate it that bit more rather than it just being the same thing over and over again. But how have you found this, like in terms of being it, like staying lean? It's easier for you now. So how have you found it being like more efficient, that your body is more primed now to staying lean, utilising fuel a bit more than previous phases? Like you find it much easier now to nearly have your abs showing now all year round, right?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm just more active overall. I'll always try and get a walk in. That helps stay lean, I feel like.
Definitely.
And it's definitely, like you always say, like to make sure you get your steps in. And at the start, I didn't think how much of an impact it would have. But now I know it has like a big impact. It helps you stay lean. It also makes you feel good and after eating and stuff like that.
So basically, like you found it easier now just to stay lean year round. You have your abs on show. If you know, might need to make a little adjustment to have yourself a bit more toned, like that's probably it. But generally, you're lean year round. Like, so how has that been easier for you on your own mindset, just having that ability? Obviously, it's not something you need to worry
No,
about.
I don't need to worry about it. And because I have all the knowledge about nutrition, or not all the knowledge, but I have a good understanding of nutrition. If I do have a holiday coming up, I'll be like, okay, I'll give myself maybe 4 weeks or something just to tidy things up to get a bit leaner. It's just like so much easier because you obviously at the start I'd go to you for every question, but now I kind of have the knowledge myself. Obviously I'll still go to you for some questions, but like just makes everything easier because it doesn't feel like I'm always on a diet or always on a plan, because I don't have to keep asking somebody questions. I just know what to do in my head myself.
Yeah. And you've been training consistently, you know, for 6-7 years maybe?
Yeah.
Would you say? How, I suppose, has your approach to training evolved? Like, how does it differ now to the times when you started out first, that you're kind of mostly now in muscle building phases, like rather than fat loss phases, you know?
Well, first of all, the thing with the muscle building is I think I'm like you, but I'm a hard gainer, so mentally it's hard because you're always trying to push yourself, but it's hard. But I guess overall it's just harder to build muscle than it is to lose fat.
Yeah, it is.
And
definitely.
well, I have way more structure now, and I understand that you can't just keep changing up your routine all the time. Like when I first started, I said I could be doing legs 4 times a week, one session after another, which makes no sense when I think about it now. I understand recovery is so important. Now I focus a lot more, like my main priority is lower body, but I do my upper body, and I actually train with intensity when I'm doing my upper body, and I can see a dramatic difference from like even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because if I did upper body, I would just go through motions. But now I can actually see like muscle in my arm and my shoulders, and like have got a little bit more muscle and stuff. Like nothing major, but like it is a big difference from before. And then obviously that strength in your upper body helps if you're doing lower body exercises, like if you're carrying dumbbells for lunges or deadlifts, you have a bit more strength to lift more.
Exactly, yeah. It translates across. That's why it's important to train your full body and not neglect anything, like a lot of people do. But what's your training structure like at the moment? What way is it laid out?
I have 2 upper and 2 lower.
So 4 days a week?
Yeah.
How long do they take you?
An hour, roughly. I used to always do 3 leg days and 2 upper, but now in the last year or so I've taken up Pilates or yoga and trying to do splits, like learning to do the splits. So I do those classes when I'm in Dubai, and then they take up time as well. So now I'm like, I don't want to be, and as you get older I feel like your flexibility and mobility are important, so I'm like kind of transitioning into it's not all about just the gym and muscle building, even though that's what I want to do, or that's what I do focus on. But I'm also like, I have other interests now as well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be doing 5 days in the gym and then also be trying to do yoga and Pilates and stuff, because then your whole week is in the gym. So I've kind of cut back to 4 days strength training, and then my other days I do like my hobbies, I guess you can call them.
And how do you ensure then, I suppose, that you're progressing with each workout now, like, and making the most out of every session?
I make sure I always write down my session, like the exercise, the reps, the sets, and then just every workout I'll obviously look back at last week's workout, and then always try and push for an extra rep or be able to up the weight. Whereas before, I'd say I was just going in there and writing down the exact same thing I did last week, I'll do this week and the next week, without thinking, oh, I've been doing 10 reps for the last month. Do you know what I mean? I was never trying to push myself.
How would you say, like, the importance of tracking what you're doing? Like, where does that rank for you?
Like number 1, I guess. I don't know, like what else?
Just in general, like, would you rate it highly, I suppose?
Yeah, highly, because otherwise you're just going through the motions. I guess it depends on your goals. Like for me, I'm naturally tall and thin, so I want to have some shape to me. So it's really important for me to try and build muscle. So I need to be tracking my lifts. Yeah.
Track it, yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like you're going to the gym and you're not seeing any changes, and then it's just frustrating because you're probably wondering, what am I doing wrong? But then you have to be honest with yourself and be like, did I actually push myself harder?
But you see people all the time in the gym for years and years and they never change.
That was me before as well.
But that one of the things is you were never tracking.
Yeah, and then when I did start tracking, I wasn't pushing myself. So
it's like baby steps. You're not going to do everything all at once. It's like layering on all the time and
you're always learning, and always improving.
So
it just takes time.
Talk a little bit now about, I suppose, mindset and motivation. Like, what mindset shifts were crucial for you to succeed in, like, building muscle without gaining excess fat?
Yeah, I used to think that, like, if you ate something that wasn't on your, wasn't on your food plan, like say birthday cake or alcohol, then I might stress before. But now, like I said, it is like a journey, because at the start you're probably focusing on being so strict and rigid, and then over time you learn that, like, when you are pretty good most of the year, not every day has to be perfect.
Yeah, that's it. You know, like, it's just about understanding that you can eat, like, the bit of cake, you can have a few sweets and treats. The problem is when people do these things, they often just don't have a little bit.
Yeah, and my mindset
they eat the whole cake.
Yeah, my mindset has changed with food like that, whereas before I just eat whatever. And like, I did enjoy my chocolate and all that, but now I'm like, because I eat quite clean foods most of the time, when I do have a bit of chocolate, I actually don't want loads. You know, a few squares is enough.
You would eat a bit of chocolate every day if you wanted, like,
but like, I like the small, like, snack size ones, because I feel like that's enough.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's gonna be times when I eat more than that, but I mean, like, on a daily basis with my coffee at lunchtime, I like to have like a Kit Kat or a Freddo or something small, just to like kill that craving. And that, like, once you can include those things every day, if you want, it kind of, it doesn't feel like you're on a diet or anything. You're just able to enjoy yourself.
And it shouldn't feel like you're on a diet. It's like, you know, we call it that, but it should get to the point where it just becomes automatic and you're just eating for health and longevity and energy. The beginning, I suppose, it can kind of look like a diet, because you have to give it a bit of structure, you have to clean it up. You want to start strong so that you see results, and then you build in the flexibility.
Yeah.
That's the key. You don't just become flexible all at once at the same time when you start.
Yeah.
You start strong, you work off your templates you're given, it's going to be foods that you love and enjoy, and then you understand how to build in the flexibility. So what advice would you give to someone who's hesitant, like women in particular would be very hesitant about gaining phases, like, because they fear gaining fat? So what advice would you give?
Well, first of all, if you're going to do it right. Like, as in, don't just finish a fat loss phase and then go back to your old habits, because you put all that work in to lose the fat and get to the goal weight and body you have. So you may as well just continue doing the right steps and gradually increase your calories. And if you don't know how to do that, then probably work with somebody that does know how to do that, because you can increase your calories without gaining back all the weight. So you kept the body you worked so hard for, and then you're increasing your calories, so you can eat more food, you can enjoy like meals out and nights out and all that without worrying too much if you're going over your calories and or not. So yeah, I feel like, and also at the start, reversing out of a fat loss phase, you probably might worry a little bit about gaining fat, but like I said, if you do it right, you won't. And then the more times you do a reverse diet and do a fat loss, you don't worry about reversing out of the fat loss phase then, because you know you've had experience in it before, you know you're not going to gain fat that easily.
How much of a help was it then having someone help you with this?
Like, it was really helpful, because otherwise I wouldn't know. I would have just thought like,
You just
you
stay
eat
low
low calories. Yeah, I
so-
thought before you decrease your calories until you're happy with your fat loss, and then I thought you had to stay in those calories to maintain your fat loss, and that was it.
That's what a lot of people do think. Or the other thing is they just achieve their fat loss, and then they actually just think, oh, I can just go back to eating the way I used to, and then they go from eating 1700 calories right up to 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, what they were eating before, and the body can't handle that big jump up. So what happens is it actually accumulates the fat back very, very quickly. Whereas if you do it in the right way, like we always say, in the reverse dieting phase, that's where the real magic happens. So looking back, I suppose, what were some of the hardest parts of your journey? Like, you know, how would you say you overcame the challenges that you did run into?
Well, at the time I probably didn't know it was the hardest parts, but looking back, the hardest parts are probably mindset things, like where if you are going out at the weekend or eating off track, you think, oh my god, I'm going to undo so much progress. And now looking back, I'm like, that's not the case. But like I said before, you have to kind of go through the journey, I feel like, and then you can look back and realize like that eating off track one day or one meal or going over your calories one day when you're in a fat loss phase, it's not the end of the world. But it's all like mindset.
Yeah.
And sometimes people might get it faster than others. But like, if I was just starting off and you told me not to worry if I went over my calories at the weekend, it might be hard for me to mentally be like, how can I not worry? I'm trying to lose fat and I've gone over my calories, you know?
Yeah.
But over time you kind of understand a bit better.
You do, and the big thing is one bad meal, one bad day, or even a bad weekend is not going to undo everything, you know? That's one of the biggest mindset shifts I think you had, and so many others that we work with, you know, because if you can overcome that, because it's the weekends is usually the problem for people. That's where the fuck up button comes out more often than not. You have the long week and work, you're stressed, you want to just kick back, relax, or you might want a mad night out to blow off some steam, and then you think, I'm after ruining everything, you know, and then the next day is a write off because you kind of make poor decisions usually when you're hungover, and then you're after thinking, yeah, what's the point in this now? I'm just repeating my old habits, my old cycle, I'll never break this, you know. But essentially it's not a big deal unless you let it be a big deal. If you just can draw a line in the sand, if you even don't do the banking of the calories and you don't plan ahead and you just simply draw a line in the sand and get yourself back on track, you're still going to make progress. It'll be slower progress, but you still make progress. Is there anything that you struggled with before that I suppose feels much easier for you now, or more natural to you, becomes more natural to you?
Maybe discipline. Even though, like, I guess some people might say it's discipline, like with training. Like before I might be like, oh, I'm having to drag myself to the gym. But then you become more disciplined and you just do it. But now I don't even know what you say it's discipline, it's just habit.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I don't find it hard to go to the gym. I enjoy it. Obviously there's days where if you're tired or you're out of the weekend and you really don't feel like it, but you just go. They're the harder days, but normally when I'm in routine, like it's pretty easy to go to the gym.
And I suppose as you continue now to increase your calories and build muscle, what are your kind of next goals for the current phase you're in for your transformation?
Hopefully I can go into this gaining phase and be in it for a long time, because like I said, I feel like I'm a hard gainer and I want to be able to build more muscle, and also I want to focus on like flexibility and mobility, and and I really need to be consistent with them, because you know sometimes if you are like, I'll just add it into the end of my workout, and you might do it for the first 2 weeks or so, but then sometimes you might not have enough time, you're like, oh, I'll just skip out on that, and then you kind of let it slip. Whereas I feel like I need to be more consistent with that and train or like practice my mobility and flexibility as if I'm muscle building, you know, as if I'm so focused on muscle building. I need to be so focused on those things and become consistent with them. Yeah.
Cool. So I suppose just to close out this hot seat, for someone that's maybe starting out or maybe in the same position you were before you started your journey, what advice would you give to them approaching muscle building or going through fat loss phases and then going into gaining? Just in general, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's kind of at the start of their journey?
Well, if you have a coach, I would say trust them, because they obviously know what they're doing. Trust the process, because you know, like I said, if you're reversing out of a fat loss phase into muscle building, you might be nervous you're gaining fat. But if you just do what your coach tells you, then obviously you'll get the results you want. And also it is like a journey, so like there'll be times when you might be worrying about like going off track, or your mindset, if like, I don't know, work was too busy and you couldn't make the gym, and you stress out about missing your gym sessions. Like at the time, obviously it's easy to tell somebody to not stress, but it's hard for them to like listen to that advice sometimes. But like as you progress in your journey, these things will become easy and you realise they're not that big of a deal, like once every now and then. And it is just like a journey really, isn't it? Because like I've been doing this for so long now, being in the gym and stuff, but like I was going through the motions at the start, then I kind of got a bit more structure, then now I'm getting the intensity, and then now obviously my knowledge on nutrition is building all the time, so you can't just learn everything at once in 12 weeks, like it takes time.
You build it up gradually. I always use the analogy of like scaffolding on a building, you know, you add layers to it. You don't do it all in one day. Gradually build it up over time until you're after building a nice tower there for yourself, and you have a lot more knowledge, you have that freedom, flexibility that we spoke about, and that's where we aim to get people to, you know. It's a big part of the Progress Blueprint program that we run. It's the educational aspect, understanding what's happening, how we're going through these different phases, so that when obviously we are done working together, you know exactly what you need to be doing moving forward. But if you could tell your past self anything before starting this journey, what would it be? If you could speak to the 20-year-old Aideen, Lisa.
Obviously I'd love to go back and give her all the knowledge I have now, but I guess when everyone has to start somewhere, and also patience and consistency to have them, because sometimes you're like, if you're not seeing, well, you think you're not seeing the results, but obviously when you have pictures you can look back and be like, oh, I actually did make loads of progress. But in the moment sometimes, like if I find I had to build muscle, I might be like, oh, what's the point in training anymore, because I just can't see the results, or it's really slow. But then I'm like, what's the other option? Just not do anything. Do you know what I mean? You can either just train anyway and feel good regardless, even if you think you're not seeing progress, but you probably are making micro progressions all the time. Like over time you will make progress, but if you just stop and give up, you're definitely not going to. So I just feel like just stick with it and have patience, and when you're doing the right things, obviously the results will come.
Patience, persistence and perseverance is an unbelievable combination for success. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this hot seat special. It's the second time we've had someone on for the second time. So Aideen jumped in there as a last minute replacement, as we said. So really happy with how this one went, and again a little bit different to our usual hot seats. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if there's any questions, just drop them in the comments.